With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 Prakim Rambam, Hilchai Shofar Sukkah V'Lulav, chapter 6, 7, and 8, Prakim Vav, Zayin, and Ches, beginning with Perek Shishi. Perek Shishi is all about the mitzvah of living or dwelling in the Sukkah. Perek Shishi has 16 halachas. Beginning with halacha Aleph, says that Rambam, Noshim, Va'avodim, Uketanim are exempt from the obligation of sitting in the Sukkah. Tumtum v'androgenes, since the tumtum might be a man, and an androgynous also might have the status of a zocher. Chayovin v'safik. Chein misha chetzi evet b'chetzi ben choydin chay. Katan she'ein tzarich le'imay. A minor who does not need his mother. In other words, as the Rambam says in Perek HaMishnah, that when he wakes up from his sleep, he doesn't right away cry out for his mother. So kishahu ben chamesh keben sheish. From then chayev asukah b'divrei soifrim. And that is kedei lachan choy b'mitzvah. Halacha beis choylin umisham sheyem, people that are sick and those who are assisting them are exempt from the sukkah. And we are not only referring to a choylin that is in danger. El afilu, if someone has a headache, afilu chash beroshoi, afilu chash be'einov. For this halacha, not only is the choylin exempt, but the misham sheyem are also exempt. Mitztaer, in contrast, someone who is uncomfortable, they are exempt from the sukkah. But only that person are le'mishamshov. Be'ezuhu mitztayer. Number one, zeh she'einu yachal lishen basukkah, because of the ruach, it's too windy, or because the weather is not good. Maybe beruchnias, al pi chasidus, makifim debino, there's too much ruach. Oy mipnei hazevuvin, v'haperoishim, there are fleas, there are mites, v'chayotze behem, or because there's a bad odor. These are all categories of mitztayer. He is exempt, but people that are assisting him are not. Halachigim. Ha'avel is chayev b'sukkah. He's not called someone who's mitztayer. Ayin Avel might have tsar, probably has tsar. That's not the obligation of Avelis, as Rashi says over there in the sukkah. V'chosen v'chalashu shvinin, v'chol b'nei ha'chupa is all of the people that are participating, helping in. V'turim en ha'sukkah kol shivas yimei ha'mishta. Wow. Halacha dalet. Shluchei mitzvah. People are going from place to place to do a mitzvah. But if a person is not doing a mitzvah trip, but the person de facto is traveling, so while during the hours of the travel, that's when they are exempt. While they're doing their job of being a shomer, watch when have gardens and have orchards. Because if the shomer is going to have a specific place, this is what happens when you have a sukkah. You stay in the sukkah. The answer is dwelling means everything. The shoiser v'dor basuka kol shivas hayom bein bayom bein balayla. And how, furthermore, kederech shudor b'beisoi b'shari ma'isa shana v'chol shivas hayom oisa adam as beisoi aray. The house becomes temporary and the sukkah becomes one's fixed location. Shenemar basuka is teishvu shivas yomim. In other words, that's where you should have your yeshiva, right? Kate said, for example, kelam hanoim. All of the beautiful utensils, umatzois hanois, and your attractive beddings should be in the sukkah. Kleshasiya, all of the glassware, like ashishois, like crystal pitchers, vakoises, and cups, should be in the sukkah. Aval klei achila, but when it comes to cutlery, when it comes to kedeiros, pans, ukaris, and plates, they should remain outside the sukkah, because since they are dirty, when they get dirty, they become not pleasant, and it makes it non-beautiful environment, makes the sukkah into a non-pretty environment. Hamanoira should be left in the sukkah, but if the sukkah is very little, then the candelabra should be taken out of the sukkah. You have different reasons. Either because either it's going to be too hot, or because the lamp is not attractive, or pasha, there's a danger of it burning down. Halacha Vav, Oichlin v'shois and v'yishenim basuka kol shiva, eating and drinking and sleeping has to be for the entire 7 days. Bein b'yoyim, bein b'layla. Furthermore, v'asu lechel su'uda chutz lasuka kol shiva, el imkein achal achilas arai, which will be a kabetza or less, a pachas, or even a little bit more, around the kabetza. Ve'enim yishenim chutz lasuka filu shinas arai. So eating, temporary eating is permitted. Sleeping, you may not even chapa snooze. Makes a lot of sense, because while you're taking your snooze, who's to say that you won't fall into a deep slumber? That might happen. When a person eats, at least people should have the ability to stop themselves from eating. So you can make up your mind, you're only going to eat a kabetza, not one. However, says the Rambam, Achila belayla yom tov harishan basuki is an obligation. Now, how much must you eat? Says the Rambam, afilu achal only a kazayas of pas yotzi yedei chavos. Bekan the elach rishus.
You in halacha zayin that way?
We in halacha zayin. Pedic vav halacha zayin. Rotz alechol suudam soil basuka. In other words, the rest of the sukkah is, if you want to eat, you have to eat in the sukkah. But if you only want to eat fruits or kaloyas or roasted grain, as we just learned, these are items that need not be eaten in the sukkah, then no problem. That the choiva is only in the night of the Seder. You can never eat chametz. But if you want to wash for a meal, you're going to have matzah. But you're not mechuyev to have matzah other than the first night. Not only your head, but the majority of the body is in the sukkah, but for shulchani, your table is inside the house. Or if the table is outside the sukkah and you ate midrabanan, it's not okay. And furthermore, not only is it not okay, in other words, you have an obligation, like we just said, to eat the first night. If someone ate that way the first night, they have to eat again. Really, this is a midrabanan. Why did they say that? Because people might go after their table. And that has nothing to do with the size of the sukkah. That means that is the din, even if it's a large sukkah. They say when the Rebbe used to eat, people noticed that, when you have a bowl of soup, your head goes into the bowl, you go into your food. The Rebbe always had the food coming into him. That's already a tzaddik. Most of us, we go after the table. So if the table is out of the sukkah, you might go out of the sukkah. Halacha 9. When it comes to reading Tanakh, in other words, Koida also means learning something, bikiyas, learning quick. That's not a problem. However, but when a person is really learning bi'iyun, then they should go outside the sukkah, because most people, right, the sukkah is a happening place. Let me word it this way. They should go to any environment that's most conducive to learning bi'iyun. And if that happens to be outside the sukkah, then you are allowed to do that. When you daven, ratza mispalel basukkah, oy chutz l'sukkah. Halacha yud. Yardu geshamim, if rain is falling, then you are allowed to enter your house. From when is it permitted to leave the sukkah? From when it begins to drip into the sukkah. How many drops? If the drips coming down from the schach, coming down from the heavens, will fall into a cooked meal, it will ruin it. And that is even by a tafshil shel poil, even a dish of beans. A dish of beans gets ruined relatively quickly. That is already considered rain that justifies you leaving the sukkah. Because it was raining this amount or more, and you already left. And now the rain stopped. So the din is, if you don't say stop in the middle of the meal and go back into the sukkah. In other words, once you move the meal inside the house, you can finish that meal inside the house. Similarly, if your person is sleeping and during the sleep you can enter the house. Even if the rain stops, that night you can stay in your bed in your home, because that's the work. We're not matriachim to move back. But one thing, guys, amud hashachar, out of bed. Halacha yud aleph. Gomar milechol bayoyim hashvi'is b'shachos. You had your meal, and let's speak about the time where this will be your last meal. So first of all, lo yater sukkah, don't take your sukkah apart, because you have an obligation to dwell on the sukkah the whole 7 days. In other words, it's not just about eating. Even if you're not going to have a meal, the sukkah must be there. Avol, what you could do is moired SK love. You can start bringing your stuff back into your house. In other words, as we'll see from when, But Erev Yom Tiv, you have to start preparing for Yom Tiv. The 7th day of Sukkot, guys, in Eretz Yisrael, right, is Erev everywhere, is Erev Shmini Atzeres. So you are allowed to start bringing your kelim into your house. But only from Mincha Olam around 3:30 Shos Maniyos. What happens if you don't have where to move in? And here's the word: you cannot add to the mitzvahs. God told us to dwell in the sukkah for 7 days, not for 8 days. But you're going to end up eating on the 8th day in the sukkah. No problem. So all you do is you invalidate the sukkah. How do you do that? You make an empty space of 4x4, as we learned in the previous chapters. That will make the sukkah invalid. Now, make no mistake that you have to eat in the sukkah for the entirety of the 7 days. So if you want to take the sukkah apart, when are you going to do it, guys? You're going to do it at the end of the 7th day. Halacha Yud Beis. Kol zman sheikonis leishav sukkah kol shiva. Guys, this is the speaking of the Rambam. Whenever you enter the sukkah to dwell, the Rambam doesn't say whenever you start a meal. Whenever you enter the sukkah to be there, you make a bracha prior to sitting down. Baruch ato Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu leishav b'sukkah. That's quite amazing. And the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah don't pasken like the Rambam, as we know, because we only make the bracha when we start eating. Now, and the Raiva Taka Kedarkai right away challenges the Rambam. Ubelela Yom Tov Harishan. On the first night of Yom Tov, first you make a bracha on the sukkah, and then you make a bracha of Shechayanu. Zman. Umesader kol brachas alakos. All of it is made when you make kiddush. In other words, you're standing up and you're saying Leishav Sukkah. Then you sit down and then you make the bracha Shechayanu. Uchazeh hoye minig Rabboisai v'Rabbi Sfard lekadish mu'umad v'leila edishon shel Chag HaSukkah is kamoi shebi arnu halacha Yud Beis Zman hazeh. Meaning, which means we sit in the sukkah for 8 days. Now we got a challenge. In other words, everything we said before, and halacha Yud Aleph, that either move stuff into the house or make the sukkah smaller by making an empty space of 4x4 tefachim, that will not work. Chutz la'aretz. Why? Because we eat in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. Why do we eat in the sukkah? We don't make a bracha. But why do we have to eat in the sukkah? Because the whole thing is that maybe the second day Yom Tov, it used to be that maybe the second day of Yom Tov was really the first day Yom Tov. Maybe Shmini Atzeres is really the 7th day. So Yoshvim Basukkah Shmini Yom. Ubayom Hashmini Shu Yom Tov Arishon Shmini Atzeres. But it's both. We celebrate Shmini Atzeres, but maybe it's also the 7th day. Yoshvim Ba, but the Im Varcham Leishav Basukkah. Chaim Tom Tavan Droigenes Loilam Im Varcham Leishav Mepnei Shem Chayav Misofik Mem Varcham. So this fits. Well, these brachas, bichas, and mixes with Rabbanan. Whenever there's a dat by Rabbanan, you don't do it. Especially since the Rambam paskins that making a bracha that's not necessary is mamish taking God's name in vain, God forbid. So same thing. A tumtum and an adrengus don't make a bracha, and on Shmini Atzeres there's also a suffix. You also do not make a bracha. Allah Yudalid Gomer Malach Alayim Hashmini. Now, when you finish on the 8th day, you can empty out your kelim back into the house. Now here, the solution we had on halacha Yudalef is not going to be good here because since Shmini Atzeres is Yom Tov, on Yom Tov you're not allowed to do the malacha of stira, right? Binyan stira. You can't take the sukkah apart. So we just learned that you're not allowed to bring a menorah into a sukkah. You do that to show it's no longer the mitzvah of a sukkah. Then you bring into the Kedei Sukkah Arais that you're not supposed to have in a sukkah because they're not clean and they make a non-clean environment. So Gavali, so you don't have the option of emptying out the schach. You didn't make it for the first days. You are allowed to build it on Chol HaMoed. Now, guys, we know that building on Chol HaMoed is something that's also, I know it's a big Nisayon we speak about. Nowadays, you do construction, and everyone knows Shabbos and Yom Tov, you're not allowed to do it. You can't do it on Chol HaMoed. But building a sukkah for sukkahs is allowed to be done on Chol HaMoed. Even if it's at the end of the 7th day, make the sukkah. Shemitzvasa kol shiva. Now, Atzei sukkah, wood, right, with which the sukkah is being constructed, all of the wood, the walls, the schach, asurim kol shumein asimei achag. All of the 8 days. Now hold on, guys. There's no mitzvah to eat in the sukkah on the 8th day. That Rambam will explain why. Whether it's the walls, whether it's the schach, meaning ein ne'oisin mehem l'davar acher kol shmoinas hayom, may not have any benefit, can't have any hana'ah for anything. Now the question is, why not for the 8th day? I get it. For the 7th day, you have a mitzvah. When something is designated for a mitzvah, it can only be used for the mitzvah. The Rambam explains why. Because the 7th day ends when? See, that's the thing. Ben hashmashis, in nishtahed nishtahin, or it's a head and a hin. So the end of the 7th day ben hashmashis, you still need to have the sukkah. But on the other hand, ben hashmashis, we have the klal that what hoil v'huksas lo ben hashmashis shul shmini huksa lo chalayim. Furthermore, halacha tes zayin, the final halacha of this chapter, all of the foods and drinks that are hung as noisukam, since they were designated for the mitzvah, also at least topic that may not be used. But but if while you hung them up, you said the following condition: I'm not separating myself. In other words, sometimes I'll have this for noisukah. Sometimes I'm going to eat from this. And kol ben hashmashis means that this is something that you said clearly goes into effect already during the ben hashmashis. Because if ben hashmashis going into the first day of Yom Tov, it was designated exclusively for noye sukkah, then no stipulation later will work. But now that you made it from the outset, so now hadezim is topic mehem chol sheyirtza. Sharei lo yihiksa oisam lo yichol aleim kedushas hasukah. Beautiful. Moving on to Hilchai Shofar Sukkah V'Lulav Perek Shvi. Now the 7th chapter is all about the mitzvah of the 4 minim and the minhag, what we call the minhag hanaviyim. As the Rambam will explain a big nuance to the meaning of minhag hanaviyim concerning arava is taking the arava. This is a chapter in which we will all benefit from Kevan's presence, because this chapter, especially also next chapter, we will have a lot of pictures. But God willing, we'll understand them even without it. This chapter has 27 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph. So let's go. The Rambam is always going to be referring to the parsha in Emor that we read over Yom Tiv. The Rambam is going to start with the lulav, kapois tamarim, literally meaning yarom, the leaves of a date palm. Now we already know, because we keep the mitzvahs, right? The leaves, well, it's the leaves when they are still unopened. Ha'amura b'Torah is hein charayois shel dekel, branches of a date palm, kishayitzmuchu, when it's already sprouting, but koidim sheyispardu ha'olam lekan ulekan, before the leaves are separated. That's the key. We all know what a lulav looks like. Ella kishiyah kamoy shot of it. It has to have the appearance of a scepter. That is no, not yet. That is what's called a lulav. Halacha beis. So that's clear. It's clear for see when you have the picture in your mind, because we know what a lulav looks like. Halacha beis. Pri eitz hadar. Now it's time to know. It's not called a beautiful fruit, just literally. It means the fruit of a beautiful tree. Ha'amur b'Torah refers, not yet, Kevan, you're jumping ahead. Hu esroi. Now goes the picture. V'anaf eitz avois ha'amur b'Torah. That refers to the hadas in English, a myrtle, and asa in Aramaic. Sha'olav chayfenes eitzoi, which the leaves surround the stem or the branch. So there has to be from every point at least 3 buds that are 3 leaves that are coming out, or more. Al kain b'givol echad, on each ring or out of each bud. But if you have 2 coming out, one on all aligned, the 2 are aligned. But the 3rd leaf, there is a 3rd leaf, but it's above it. That's not the one that God commanded us to take, and it's not to braid it. It will be called in the Belashon Chazal a hadas shoita, a wild myrtle. Many times you have the word shoita in this context, not as a mentally not well, but as something that's wild, which is really connected one with the other. Halachim. Next, arvi nachal, willows of a brook. It's not any willow that grows by a brook. Now, the Torah says a plant that's growing by the brook. No, that is called arvi nachal. And the Rambam defines what we know from tradition what this looks like. Allah shaloi mashuch, its leaf is extended. And by the way, that's the meaning of nachal. It's extended like a brook. It's not a round leaf, it's an elongated leaf. Upiv chalak, which means the edge has to be smooth. All the edges are smooth. And the final, third siman, the kanashaloi adoim, and the stem has to be red. Most stems are brownish. It's reddish. That is what's called an arava. Happens to be de facto that most of the aravas grows by the nachalim, but it doesn't have to be there. That's why the Torah calls him arvei nachal. But the Rambam says, as long as it is this type, that is what's kosher. And again, not anything that grows by a brook. Halacha dalet. Now, there are other plants that look similar to the arava, but they will be different here. The leaf is rounded, upiv doimel lamasar, and the edges look like a saw, and its stem is not red. That is what Chazal refer to as tzafzafa, and that's completely psula. Another b'di'evet, not even b'di'evet, okay. Yesham min arava, there is a type of an arava. The edges are not fully smooth. But they're not terrible like a saw. It's like in between. To have teeny juttings, right? Teeny protrusions. You see? Like the edge of a small sickle. And this is kosher. Kosher. Now, how do we know that? Elo says that Rambam goes straight from tradition. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that explained it. And I want you to know that people don't notice it, but I would say that many people use telamim. It's not perfectly smooth, but it doesn't matter. We have right through it. What's not okay is when it's mamish like a saw. Okay. Halacha hey. Arba minim elu. Now that we verbalized, we clarified, we identified these four. Mitzvah achase. Uma'akven zedzeh. Each one is needed for they're essential. All of them together are also called the mitzvah of a lulav. Ve'ein peichasim mehen, ve'ein moisifin aleim. What's ma'akven? Ve'im loy nimtza echad mehen. And if you have the three, but you don't have the four, you can't substitute it. Halacha vav. Now, mitzvah mena mufchar le'egoid lulav v'hadas v'arava, to bind the three of the four together. Velasoi shloshton aguda achas, make them into a bundle. That was a homachlekes in the Gemara, whether you have to. The Rambam paskins, it's mitzvah mena mufchar. And now, uchshu noitel notzis bahem, v'varach tchila al netilas lulav. Why do you make the bracha netilas lulav? Hoyel v'kulam semuchim loi. In other words, since they are bound together, more than that, they're nismach, they lean. The lulav is the biggest one, and the leaning, you can say, goes even to the esrog. Everyone is leaning on the lulav. So you name all four lulav by the bracha. Was the bracha is over la asiyasan. Another detail, the noitlan derech gidilasan, you have to take them as they grow. As they grow means the gashmi is sheyu ikreim lamata la'aretz. Whatever was naturally facing the ground should be facing the ground when you're holding it, and the head of that leaf, while you're holding it, should be lamayla la'avir, heads towards the sky. Well, that is mitzvah meramufcha. Now, the imlo yagoda, if you did not bind them, but you took them together, you have them together, yatzah. You must possess all four. In other words, even though they don't have to be bound, the Rambam is going back. You can't pick up three. No. They have to be taken at the same time. Or even more. I'll take three now. I'll take one later. They don't have to be bundled, but you have to take them together. Halacha zayin. How much from each one? How many from each one? No, chanes one esrek. Can you imagine? Whew, it would make a killing. Lulav echad. They're starting to get smart. They're starting to charge for the lulav. Here now you pay $100 for the lulav. Forget about the esrek. $770 for the esrek. The esrek echad. Shnei badei arava. Pay for the lulav. The Mishnah says you're mavli and the lulav by shviyas over there. Exactly. Very good. Ushloisha badei hadas. Now, by the hadas, you can add. The im ratzalohoisev only by the hadas kidei shiyah aguda gedoyla moisev. And not only could you do it v'noya mitzvah, avol sha'ar haminim ein moisifan al minyanim ve'ein goyim mehem. But even over there, ve'im hoisev oigara loy pasal. Now, I want you to know that when the Rambam wrote a sefer, we have now different versions. The Rambam himself, in an earlier version of his Rambam, wrote by the others that im hoisev oigara yes pasal. Means the Rambam in this din was going back and forth. The final version that we have from the Rambam is where he wrote loy pasal, even by the other meaning. Okay, halacha. Now let's go to the size. Hama shir oirech kol min mehen. Mevaldik by the lulav ein pachos me'abat tvachim, not less than 4 tvachim. Ve'im haya oreich kolshu. If it's oreich kolshu, many people misunderstand it. The Rambam says it has to be 4 tvachim. Then he says if it's oreich kolshu, it's kosher. It means if it's bigger than the 4 tvachim, any amount, 4, 4.1, a million. That's the meaning of if it's bigger, then it's good. No. Yeah, but the Rambam doesn't say that. The Rambam writes, "Ein pachas ma'arba v'im haya arach kol shu kasher." Many people think of these as b'diavad, it can be any height, but it's not. That's not what the Rambam is saying. Another thing, when you have to have the minimum of 4, umididasi only mishidrei bilvad. To see the shidra, I mean, we take the mitzvah, but you know what we call the spine, that green hard part from out of which the leaves grow, because there are many leaves that go on top of the shedra. They don't count. Or if you can have something under the shedra, it has to be 4. You understand, where there is a spine. The not from the tips of the leaves, which go above the spine. That's not part of the 4. Hadas varava also. Ein pachos mishloisha tvachim. Now you see right away that the lulav has to be at least 1 tefach bigger, but they cannot be less than 3. And here also, the im hoya aruchim kol shehein. If they are beyond that, any amount means little more or a lot more. We don't care. Shame. Even if each one of these hadassim only have 3 fresh leaves, as long as they are on the top, it's okay. People get now. It's not beautiful when it begins to fall off. The Rambam is saying that as long as there are 3 on the top, you're good. Lachem have to be moist; it cannot be fully dry. The imagad halulav. If you're binding it together, make sure it's done that way, because you can bind the hadassim and the arabos. They're only 3 tvachim, but you can bind them high up. In other words, if like this is shorter than this. Yeah, at the bottom. If I put it on the top, what did I gain? You want the lulav to stick out. The shir esrek ein pachos mikabetza, and again the imo hayagadol kol shehu. If it's beyond that any size, kosher. When Chazal speak about that, the mitzvah min hamufchar, I think it was in Bava Basra's achlish. One of the examples the Rashi gives, achlish means, how big of an esek. Beyond the shlish bigger is not even called mitzvah min hamufchar. It's too big. Halacha 9. So machlik is the Rashi toisus, if it's the size or if it's the value of the mitzvah. Mitzvah min hamufchar. Hiddur mitzvah. Anyways, halacha 9. Min sheyag biyarba min hamelu, when you pick them up, ben shik biyam ka'achas, ben bozachar zem. Now, by the way, when he says Zachar Zeh, the Rambam doesn't mean you pick one up and then you put it down. You learned before. You pick one up, you pick up another one, but that's what he means. Many people today, they pick up the lulav and they pick up the esrek at the end of the bracha. That's the meaning of Zachar Zeh. And again, vuhu, that you're yoitza, that when you picked it up, it was derech gidilasam. Avol shaloi derech gidilasam. Other people, it's not our minute, since they want to make the bracha over la'asa yasam. So what they do is that they pick everything up. They put the esrog upside down. They can even put it together. But since it's upside down, the same concept. And then at the end of the bracha, they turn it around. Lo yas. Mitzvah kiel chasam sheyagbia aguda shel shloishim min yamin. And the esrog should be besmoil. And then not only should you take it together, not going into the bracha, now we do na'anuyin. Mitzvah men hamuvchar. V'yoylech v'yave v'yala v'yoyred v'yanani alul of shloishim b'mchol ruach. In every direction 3 times now. Follow what the Rambam is saying. Kate said, moilech means forward, just to know the taich. Forward. And then you shake it 3 times. It means you go forward, 1, 2, 3. Or maybe means you bring it back, 1, 2, 3. That's not our minute, I'm just saying. V'chein, you go up 1, 2, 3. Then you go down 1, 2, 3. That's it.
Straight down or is that hard?
No, there's no heart here. Yeah, we do a whole different thing. In other words, we do it to 6 ruchos. And every time we bring it back to the heart. And also, we don't shake it 3 times. We go all the way to the right, and we bring it back. All the way to the right, and we bring it back. The Rambam is not saying that's a whole different way of doing nanuyim. You bring it straight, and when it's straight, 1, 2, 3. That's it. Bring it back. Doesn't say to the heart. Bring it back. 1, 2, 3. Up. 1, 2, 3. Down. 1, 2, 3. When do you make the nanuyim? Now the Rambam just wrote that the mitzvah min hamuvchar or mitzvah kel chasa is to do the nanuyim. But when is that? B'shas kriyas hallel. When during hallel? B'hoidol Hashem tchila v'soif and ba'on Hashem oishiyana. Another din. Chol hayem koshel netilas lulav. That you know what not ve'ein netila b'layla. Halacha yud aleph. Also la'aguda zu gimoin shel kesef v'shel zav. If you wrapped it in a cord of gold and silver. Right, we said aguda. You wrapped it in a golden cord. Or shekarachol of sadin, or you put a decorative cloth. Sadin is like a silk, something chashuv, and you took it. Which means that your hand is not touching all of the minim. One might have argued there's a chatzitza. It's not a chatzitza. Yotza. Why? Because of these other rules. Likicha ali de davar acher. When you take something, even though it's through another medium, through a davar acher, it's called a likicha. When only if the item is a golden cord, a silver cord, a sudden. In other words, that has to be something that you see. It's to give greater chashivas to the mitzvah. That's not that very good. That's exact because that's the rule. These are the words of Chazal. Shekol shehu lin na oisoi. Any entity that's there to make the iked more attractive, ain't no chaytzitz. If you leave it in an atzitz, which we leave it in a vase, we leave it in a container, in a pot. You leave it because you want to leave it in water. Then a person says, "Oh, I'll pick up the vase." The vase is even nicer than the towel, but the vase is not there to beautify it. The vase is there to hold it.
Why don't we say that for wearing a beautiful? Why don't we say that wearing a beautiful shirt and putting on tefillin?
Because the shirt. First of all, here the Torah says, Kevan, to take the minim. Velokachtem, you're taking it. God doesn't say to take tefillin. God says to put the tefillin on you. It's different. It's different. No, I'm taking it. I took it. What's the problem? But there's something in between. That which is there is bottled to it. It's there to serve it. It's there to make it more attractive. Halacha Yud Beis. Oh God, esalulo imahadas varavam. You bound these 3 together, but the these three types have in between, not between your hand in it, not a golden cord. In that bundle, in the bundle of the 3, there's a cloth. And the cloth is interposing, let's say, the lulav and the hadas. It creates a chatzitz. But that's only because the cloth is not from these 3. But what happens if one of the leaves of the hadas, that's not called a chatzitza, because min b'minoi ain't a chatzitz. You can tie it with a string, you can tie it with a cord. He's saying something else that we're not talking about in your hand. If I have something that doesn't purify, I'm not grabbing it on it. I'm binding it. I'm putting a string over here. String is not. If it's not beautifying it, then I shouldn't grab it. I can grab it in the bottom. But we don't say it's problematic because it's not something beautiful. Because really, you don't even need it. Okay, halacha yud gimel. Mitzvahs lulav linot al yom rishon shel chag. Bilvad b'chol makom u'b'chol zman v'afilu b'shabbos. Guys, this is very important. By Torah law, the obligation aside of the Beis Hamikdash, Torah law, the mitzvahs to take it on the first day and whenever it is, even b'Shabbos, as it says, "Ulakachtem lechem b'yom harishon." Not to l'kachtem lechem shivas yomim teishu b'sukkos. No, not one day. However, u'b'mikdash levadei noitel noisim kol yom v'yom b'shivas yemei achag shenemar usmachtem lefnei Hashem alekeichem shivas yomim. Wait. Now, 1 second. Now let's go back. Chol Yom HaShabbos Liyos B'Teicha Me'achag. There's many steps here. If Shabbos falls not on the first day, if Shabbos falls on any day other than the first day, and we're talking about the Beis Hamikdash, because outside the Beis Hamikdash, B'chlal, we don't take the lulav. If the second day of Sukkot is Shabbos, if the third day of Sukkot is Shabbos, if the fourth is Sukkot in the Beis Hamikdash, then any nitl b'Shabbos. Why? Now hold on. The big difference, guys. On Rosh Hashanah, what did we say? Even if the first day of Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, we don't blow the shofar. Here, in the beginning, in the Beis Hamikdash, that you take it 7 days, the gezerah of carrying is not on the first day. Why? Why not even on the first day? Mipnei answers the Rambam because since we see in the Torah, Yakir, that Hashem commanded us in the Beis Hamikdash to take it for 7 days. Chutz leBeis Hamikdash, everywhere, take it only the first day. What do we see from over there? That for the Oibishter, the first day is more important. Outside the Beis Hamikdash, only the first day. So since there is an extra importance of taking the first day, Nimsa, she'ein din avidin shaliyam shabbat. Shebeshali me'achog, ein adam chayiv little lulav el b'mikdash. Now, this is big stuff now. However, we're not done yet. And that's the way it was, guys, until the end of the Churban Bayis. That what? That when did we say that a sukkah shechal liyas b'Shabbos, you don't take the lulav, only if it's not on the first day. B'shari me'achag. But now, lachet tezva shchar Beis Hamikdash, and Yiskinu, they made a takana that Rabbi Zajac is takana is all zechel hamikdash. She alulav nitful b'chol makom kol shivas me'achag zechel hamikdash. And not only that, remember, Eitz the Rabbanim, you still make a bracha. V'chol yem v'yem v'arachol v'arachato Hashem alekeinu v'alochelu v'shekeshem v'seidu ala tilas lulav, as the rule is because it's a mitzvah midivrei Yisrael. The takana zuam kol takana she's gonna be yechanim and zakim shchar Beis Hamikdash, says the Rambam. Kishi yibanam Beis Hamikdash yachzor od banam liyashim. You don't have to overrule this. Anything that's made zecher, when the Chachamim make a takana. So what's the klal? We learned this together. We're going to understand Sanhedrin, right? If it's a takana, gezeiras takana some minhagos, to overturn it, once most people undertook it, you have to have another convention of the Sanhedrin, and they have to be gadol, b'minyan, or b'chachma, b'minyan. That you cannot. Anything that he made zecher l'mikdash, the moment the Beis Hamikdash is going to be rebuilt, today, automatically we're going to go back. He only made it zecher l'mikdash. Now, this man Beis Hamikdash kayam, hoyulul of nitol b'yom rishon shechaliyas b'Shabbos, like we said. Where, guys, not only in the Beis Hamikdash, in any place, as long as they knew, they would take it even b'Shabbos. Even then, they didn't take it on Shabbos because they weren't certain it's Yom Tov. Shabbos for sure. However, now let's go. Halacha Yud Zayin from when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Now they added to the Gezeidah Darabah. They added to it. Now they said, it's once, why, the Rambam says, why in the Beis Hamikdash, why everywhere did they take it on Shabbos? Because the first day is different than all of the rest of the days. But after the Churban Abayis Yakir, they're all the same. There's no Beis Hamikdash yet, and everyone takes it all 7 days. If everyone takes it all 7 days, now we apply Gezeidah Darabah even on the first day, like by Rosh Hashanah. Taka nowadays, if the first day of Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos now, we don't take the lulav on Shabbos. Shchar Beis Hamikdash, Asur Chachamim little se lulav b'Shabbos, even by Yom Harishon. V'afilu b'nei Eretz Yisrael shkitzu as hachodesh, because we don't want to differentiate. B'pnei b'nei hagvul and arachaykim sheni yom k'es hachodesh, k'dei sheyu hakol shovim b'davar zeh. V'lo yu elu leitin b'Shabbos v'elu ein leitin. Hoyel v'chiv Yom Harishon v'chol makom echadu t'ein sham mikdash li'talis boy. Then we make us today everything is the same. Halacha Yud Ches. Now 1 second, we're not done yet. Bisman Hazeh, guys, there were 2 phases. There was a phase when Chutz LaBeis Hamikdash, when we were Makadesh Al Pi Re'iyah, until the times of Hillel HaKatan, there were places that Taka had a doubt. They didn't know when is Rosh Chodesh. Bisman Hazeh means now that we all follow the calendar that was made based on the Cheshbon that we are about to learn in Kiddush HaChodesh, they still kept the same thing. That what? That we never take it on Shabbos. Even the first day, Bagvulin, Eretz Yisrael, not even Yom Harishon, even though everyone knows Kfiyas HaChodesh. And don't forget, you can argue, hello, the Takanas Chachamim not to take it was only not by Yom HaRishon. They only added it when there was a suffix. Now there's no suffix. There was a, doesn't matter, it stays. Ukfar beyarnu sheikir ho'iser benatilas alo b'Shabbos is all Gezeira Shema Yavrenu Arba Amas b'Shus Horabim. Aloha you test. Weiter. Who's obligated? Says the Rambam Kol Shechai v'Shefer v'Sukkah Chai v'Natilas Lulav. We just had this in the previous chapter. Who? Chola patim v'Shefer v'Sukkah patim Lulav. Kotan hayudei linaneya. Chai v'Lulav divrei seifrim kedei lachanche b'mitzvahs. Mamash as we had by the shofar. However, by the sukkah, we said he doesn't need his mother. Here we don't say that. Why not? I'll tell you why. Because there, the sukkah is to sleep in the sukkah. The mother is not sleeping in the sukkah. We said that Rambam in the Perush HaMishnah says, what's the meaning? He needs his mother, 5 and 6, that when he wakes up, he doesn't cry, Ma. Doesn't need that. So, but here, even younger. Because you're not telling him to sleep in a place away from his mother. Beautiful. Halacha Chav. Anudin. Now we're going to Aravos. And you should know there's a big thing about Aravos. Halacha l'Moshe Messina. We say Aravos is minig anavim. No. It's much more than that. A part of it is minig neviim. The ikir is halacha l'Moshe Messina. Halacha l'Moshe Messina shemeviim b'mikdash areva acheres. Arava acheres. I'm sorry, another arava. Chutz ma'arava shalulav. Don't mix that up. The ein adam yoytze yedei chavasi b'arava shalulav. V'shiyura. In the lulav, we learned you need to have 2 aravos. For this halacha l'Moshe Messina in the Beis Hamikdash, you need to have only 1. It's not that you cannot add. Afilo ala echad bebad echad. 1 branch that has 1 leaf is good enough. It's not about the leaf. It's about the branch. Now, halacha chaval. Keitzer hoy mitzvasa. What do they do with that? Chol yem yem yeshuvas anyamim. They would bring branches of willows and they would stand them upright. Given as a picture. And how tall were they? They were humongous. No, wait. Now in the Beis Hamikdash, there was, the Mizbeach was 10 amos, 15 feet, 16 feet, 17 feet. The tip of it went over the top. It bent over on top. It made like a canopy over the Mizbeach. The Rosheim kafufan al gabi ha-Mizbeach. When they would bring it and organize it, then toikin ubadiyan v'toikin. One second. Now. Chol yom Shabbos liyas b'toich hachag. Here, if you remember the Mishnah, here it means different. If Shabbos falls out during the Chag, during the Chag meant not on the first day. Here, it's the first day, and the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, just not the seventh. So one second, we're going back over here. Here, the Toich HaChag means if this minhag is done on the first day. Toich HaChag means in any days other than the seventh. Ein zoik v'in harav. Means when there was a Beis Hamikdash, when the first day falls on Shabbos, they would take the lulav. Very good. No. And they would take that over. That's Chol Yom Shabbos L'B'Teicha Chag includes the first day. They would also. When would they not do it? Only when the seventh is on Shabbos. This thing that you don't do it. Ela im kein Chol Shvil is b'Shabbos. No, I'm sorry. Slicha. They don't take it. They don't take it. Very good. They don't take it. And here, even on the first day, they don't take it. The only times that in the Beis Hamikdash they do it, even on Shabbos, is on the seventh. Well, that's the whole Mishnah. So it's in the Beis Hamikdash. On the first, they don't do the Arabas, but they take the lulav. On the seventh, they don't take the lulav, but they take that Arabah. Why? Because many people don't think it's a mitzvah from God. People are going to think we're not doing it because it's only minig and neviim. No, because it's an obligation. Wow, it's a chayva. to take a arava and put it around the mizbeach. Now let's go more. Don't forget, on Shabbos and Allah carry. Where did they get it from? So like this, maniche mevian oisem erev Shabbos lamikdash. Umanicha oisem begigi yoishos up. They put it in golden containers, golden bowls. In other words, shaloi yichmeshu ha'olam. We don't want the leaves to dry out, even though we said even one leaf. You want it to be nice and fresh. Ulamachar on Shabbos zoikven oise al gabe hamizbech. They would surround the mizbech with it. Uboyim ha'am. Listen to this, and people would come. These people would take it. They would
and
take
do what with it?
I don't know. It's not clear. They would bang it. One second. It's halacha l'moshe mesina, but it's not written. When do we do it now? So lulav, Rabbi Zajac and Zakai, zeichel l'mikdash, all the 7 days. Why don't we say? Listen, when the Beis Hamikdash stood, they only did this in the Beis Hamikdash. But now that there's no Beis Hamikdash, since in the Beis Hamikdash they did it all 7 days, why don't we do the Arabas now all the 7 days? Because since it's not beferish b'toyram, the zeichel l'mikdash is only on the 7th day. Why the 7th? Because since in the Beis Hamikdash they made the 7th special, that even when it falls on Shabbos they still did it. So you see, they do it on the 7th. What do we do now? Now, what they did in the Beis Hamikdash, the Rambam doesn't write. What do we do? Naketzer oisa, loikech bad echad. You can take one, or bad and harbe, and our minig is to take 5. And again, the ikir is chutz ma'arava shebelulav. What do we do with it? What's the minig now? Zeichel l'mikdash v'choyvet ba'al hakarka. You bang it on the ground or on a keli twice or 3 times. Our minig is to do it 5 times. That to be mamtik the chamisha gevuras beloy bracha. Why don't we make a bracha for the banging? Because the banging is minig neviim. Gewaldik. The taking of the arava is halacha l'moshe mesina. I think in the Beis Hamikdash people would just take it. They would just take it. Like ulakachtam lochem. That's the whole pedic. You take the darman. Forget about the nanuim. You take it. Where would you take it? They would put it around the mizbeach. Now, what is pshat? That people, the Israelim would walk in there. That's already makam mizbeach. Could be. Soirach. Okay, weiter. Next halach. Halacha chav gimel. Got to get moving. B'chol yoim v'yoim. Get a picture from the Rambam, but how to keep the mitzvahs. That's the goal of the Yad HaChazak. In the Beis Hamikdash here, again, I think it's Taka Yisraelim. In the Beis Hamikdash, everyone would go around the Mizbech, not with our rabbis. Today we mix all together. We walk around the Mizbech holding the lulav. One time. By the way, we do this now. When we do and we say, Anna Hashem Oishiana, Anna Hashem Oishiana. That's it. I mean, Mistama, they repeated it many times. Now, I'm just saying that maybe only Kohanim did it. I don't know. That's what I'm not clear. It doesn't say who did it. Maybe the mitzvah was done like Korbanos. Who brings the Korbanos? Kohanim. Maybe it's done by the Kohanim on behalf of. Okay, I don't know. Let's go. Kfar Hagi Yisrael b'chol hamakoymes lahaniach teva be'emtza beis hakneses umakifen oisa b'chol yoyim kederach shemakifen beis hamizbeach zeichel l'mikdash. But the beautiful thing is that on one hand, this we do every day. We can do this every day. But the arava we only do on the 7th day. Why? Because since they were makir mizbeach with the lulav, that's what. And in the lulav they took it 7 days in the beis hamikdash. The lulav is written in the Torah. So Zeichel Mikdash, even though this detail is not written in the Torah, but taking of a lulav, taking of the arav is b'chlal not mentioned. There's no mention of taking of arav. Halacha chav dalet. Kach hoya minig Yerushalayim. Yoytze adam beis shachris v'lulav b'yodeh. V'nichnas lebeis hakneses u'mispalel v'hu b'yodeh. V'yoytze lebikar choylem u'lanachem avelem v'hu b'yodeh. And then uchshekanis lamedrash. When you're learning, you're not going to Yerushalmis. They take a learn good. Even when you daven, you hold it. But when you're learning, You send it home. You don't do it yourself. The Yerushalmis have a minhag. They tell their kids what to do for them. That's over there, the Yerushalayim. Yeah, you do it for me. You do it. Halacha chafei. Now, okay, so now he sent it home. So the wife is getting it from whoever. She can put it back in that vase of water. Another than she can do it even on Shabbos. Even in the Beis Hamikdash, but they took the lulav on Shabbos, that's not considered planting, but you cannot add water. On Yom Tov, you can add water, but you cannot place water afresh. Chalamoyed, you can exchange the water. Halacha chavav. Hadash lulav. Here we go. The concept of that when something is muktzah for a mitzvah, you can't have hana. So let's go how that applies to a hadas, different than by an esrog. You see, an esrog is a fruit. So anything that's a fruit, and therefore it becomes muktzah mitzvah, means you can't eat it. No, we'll see what the Rambam says. By a esrog, since the ikar of esrog is eating, so the muktzah mitzvah goes on the eating part. And hadas, the lechatchila is only l'reach. So by a hadas, we say also l'reach by, because mepnei she'ein roy elo l'reach. And now we say hoil muktzah mitzvah. You also l'reach. But by an esrog, mutar l'reach by. Why? This is quite amazing. Now, I want you to know it says in Shulchan Aruch that many people don't smell it. Many people don't smell it, and other people say that the whole problem of smelling b'chlal is only during the mitzvah. And let's go right. Halacha chav zayin. Final halacha. Now, what about eating? So now we go for asur. For asur lechol esed kol yom mishiva. You can't eat the esed. Never. Why? Because however, now on the 8th day you can eat it. Even though we don't take the lulav on the 8th day, we have this in the previous chapter. The esrog is also on the 8th day. Because it used to be that the 8th day yakir maybe is the 7th day. Now we know it remains. But there's one thing. Why is it muktzah to eat for all of the 7 days if I bought only one esrog? If lachatchila, I bought an esrog for every day. I was never maktzia, I never designated my esrog for all 7. Then kolachas va'achas taka, that day. Once it was muktzah for the mitzvah of part of the day, you cannot use it for the rest of the day, but only for that day. But then, guys, let's get moving. It's late. The final chapter today, the 8th chapter of Hilchai Shofar Sukkah V'Lulav, which is taka the final chapter of this series, is now going to speak about what invalidates the Daled Minim. All of the psulim. We'll need some more pictures over here, and also the obligation, the additional obligation of having simcha on Sukkos in the Beis Hamikdash, something that we refer to today as Simchas Beis Hashoyevam. This chapter has 15 halachas. Halacha Alf. If one is dry, right, it was taken by force or it was stolen, even after the owner had yush. There was an ashera tree that was worshipped, which is very important. There's a concept of being mevatalit, right? Now, since Yakir, even though that there's a concept of someone can nullify the ashera, since prior to that, there was a mitzvah to burn it. Even after the bittul, you cannot use anything for a mitzvah. Or if it belongs to Iran Nidachas, that is a puzzle. But if these 4 minim, any one of them belong to a avodah zarah, it was the rechush of avodah zarah, which means asur b'ana. But what, Yakir? But there's no obligation to destroy it, even since. Then lo yitla. But if you took it your yoitz, you can't have ana from avodah zarah. Mitzvahs lav lo hanisnit. If it was withering but not completely dried out, kosher. You can't keep the mitzvahs. Happened many times in Russia. They would keep the lulav from 1 year to the next. B'di'evet. Then lulav, even though it's yavesh, b'di'evet is kosher, but that's only by the lulav and not by the other shadim. Halacha base. Esrog that is arla, asabana, or truma temeya means you have to burn it. Tevel, they are pasul. You can ask mitzvah lav lahenes nitno. The answer is that an esrog is called a pri eitz hadar. It's not called a pri. It's not called a pri. That's the pshat. Not because you're not having hanoi. It's not a pri. It has to be destroyed. However, if it damai, now there are two categories of people that don't have to have damai. If you remember, soldiers, troops of soldiers, and aniyim. Since everyone potentially is an ani, you can be mafked everything or come move in LA and pay your monthly obligations. So you can't say it's not a pri. Potentially. Why not? Because Shema you might cause it to become susceptible. In other words, if your hands are moist, so don't do that. However, if you did it, kosher. If the tip of the lulav is cut off, puzzle, if the tip of the lulav is split, if the split is so big, not yet. These are wrong pictures. That what? Not yet. It looks like two puzzle. If it was bent forward, it looks like a hunchback. That's puzzle. But if it was bent backwards, kosher, because that's the natural pattern of its growth. Next thing, if it was bent to either of the sides, puzzle. Nifredu olav. The leaves are separated one from the other, but it did not begin to hang downwards. It's still kosher. But nifritzu, if the leaves burst open, in other words, it's hanging down. That's finally came and got us picture. Now, this is the natural pattern of the lulav. It's amazing. On the growing, every leaf is really doubled. And they are devuka megabam, right? They are connected at their back. We all know that. The gav kol shnei olan hadevukim. At the back of these two leaves, every back is called a tiyomes. So the tiyomet, the twin. Every leaf is two. It's like twins. And if nechlo tiyomes, if that is split, puzzle, hoya olav achas achas. But if lachatchila it wasn't twins, it chilas b'riyasoi. Possible. The Rebbe explains that each one, it's about achdos. So each one represents the esrog grows throughout all of the 4 seasons. So it's ma'achet 4. The hadas is 3, ma'achet 3. The lulav is ma'achet 2 because of this double tiyomes. And that rava is 1. Each one is loy hoyo olav zeh al zeh kedera kol olav. Elo zeh tacha zeh. One is below the other. It still depends. If at least the tip of one touches the root of the other, as long as the spine is covered, kosher. The a myrtle branch, right? That the tip was cut off, kosher. If most of the leaves fell off, we've already had this before. If you have 3 leaves in one row or one bud, we're good. Caution. Now there's also berries that we don't see, but there's berries on it. So if it's roiv berries, majority berries, more than the leaves, still not always not that. If the berries are green, like the leaves, it doesn't take away. Caution. But if the berries turned red or they turn black, puzzle. But why they puzzle red or black? Because they're more than the leaves. You can fix it by removing. You don't even have to remove all. You have to just make that into the minority. On the other hand, because it's like a masakin. What happens if and if you remove them? Other people are going to because let's go la'achila. In other words, it was like you did not do it for the mitzvah. You did it for other reasons. Halacha vav. Next, the willow branch whose tip was cut off, ksheda. But nifratzu aleha, then it's possible, as we learned in halacha dalach. Halacha 7. Esrik shenikav. There is a hole, Yakir. Now, like this, there is a hole that removes the peri, and then there is a hole that doesn't remove the peri. It's just a hole. That's the hole. Nothing is missing. But there is a hole. So if it's mefulash, if it goes through and through, I don't care how little the hole is possible. A hole that doesn't remove anything, but it's a hole. But it doesn't go through and through. Only if the hole has the circumference of a coin called an isser, or more, then is it possible. All of that is sometimes okay because none of the esrog is missing. But if chasar kol shehu, it's the type of hole that ate up from the peri, then possible. Nitel dadoi, which is also what we refer to as the pitoim. Nitel dadoi who haroi shakot nesheshishantu boy, that tip on the top from where the flower grows puzzle. Nitel ho eitz shu tola by ilam ikara esrog, we call the akuts. What's the bottom, the stem? The nishar mekoy my guma, there's a hole in there puzzle. Another din. Now we're not going back to the play. Generally, olos chazozis olav. If it's covered with bumps, that's called the chazozis. Im b'shnayim v'shloishim mekoymois puzzle. Im b'makem echad. Im olos al rubai. If this growth covers the roiv of the esrog puzzle, and if not, if it's only one, it's kosher. Next case, the im olos al dado. If this type of bump or growth grows on the pitim, afilu kol shu puzzle. Next thing, nikla v'chitzin shaloi. If the peel was removed, speaking about the peel of the esrog, she'eino machasrei, obviously without causing any of the substance of the esrog to be lost, because we learned before chasar kol shu puzzle, but chasar kol shu of the fruit. If you only remove the skin, that's not the esrog. So it's not going to be always puzzle. So it depends. Im yeshar yarei kamoy shibri yasi. If it remains that greenish yellowish color, then we're not saying it's good. Then even then, if all of it was peeled, puzzle. But if you left some of the peel and all of the color is there, then it's kosher. Halacha 8. Esrog shehu tafuach. An esrog that is inflated. Esrog that is soruach, it's decaying. An esrog that's kavush, that was pickled. An esrog that was cooked, shalok. An esrog that's black. An esrog that's white. An esrog that's menumar, that's speckled. An esrog that's so green, it's like a leek. Yaroik, kikarton, puzzle. Next skin. Gidla b'tfush l'sokim in beri acheres. When an esrog grows, you can put a form over it. Then it grows into the form. If the form makes it look like another species puzzle. Also, if the form kept its natural look, but even though you made it dapim, you made it different layers, you enhanced it, kosher, because it looks like an esrog. Next, hatiyoim, an esrog that grows, two esrog that grows together, a twin esrog, naturally, they grew together. Here we have a picture of a tiyoim, very good. Or v'habois, an esrog that's still unripe, it's kosher. Next, Makaim Shoesregim Sholahem Kein Shachrus Mu'uta. If an esrog has this slight black tinge, Ksheidin. But if the esrog is so black, it's Ka'adam Kushi. Areza Pasal Bichal Makaim. Halacha 9, Kol Elo Shomanu Shem Solom Afnei Mumen Shebeyarnu, or because they are Gazel V'Geneva. So then there, all of the above psulim chadra halkap is only beyond tradition bovad, because since the chiyuv yakid is midoi raisa, it's like a problem. Aval beyond of shenim shari kol yamim. Why are you taking it? Zechel amigdash. Then it's kosher. But v'hapaslanus, because of avodah zara, or because it's aser machila, we said it's not called a pedi. Then even for the other days it won't be good. Bein beyond of rishon, bein shari yamim pas. Halacha here. Ein adam yoytzev beyond of rishon shal chag v'lav shal chaveru. You cannot be Yosef with someone else's lulav, even if you borrowed it from him. Exactly. So a sukkah shul is good. A lulav shul is not good. Now we even tolerate a matana manas lahachzir. You're Yosef if you fulfill the condition. Because then shenimsa king gazel. Next again, don't give such a lulav as a matana al manas lahachzir to a minor. Why? This we have to remember these dinim, because shahakatan kaina min hatoira a cotton can acquire. Min hatoira a cotton cannot bequeath. He cannot be makna. Or venimsa. So think about it. You're giving it to him, right? When he gives it back to you, he cannot do that. Now the truth is like this: if you gave it to the cotton matana al manas lahachzir, it's not the end of the world, because what really happened was, since he cannot return it, so he never acquired it. But don't do that. Now, if any of them is borrowed, the doesn't only refer to the lulav. What about partners? Which means one doesn't own all of it. Can be yoitza. Ein echad mem zeichel ichwas v'rishon ad. The other one has to give it as a gift. Now the other one doesn't own the whole thing. Whatever the other owns has to be gifted for the mitzvah. Exception. Ha'achim shekonu esregim betfusas habayis. Tfusas habayis means that when the bequeather, when the father, when the moedish passes away, prior to the chalukah, they're more than shutfim. Shutfim means I own a little bit, you own a little bit. Since Abba owned everything, so we could sometimes say each one owns anything, but one second. So they took the natal echad mehem esrog v'yotzabai. So here's the question. Im yachol la'achloi, forget about an esrog. Food. If from tfusas habayis, one guy takes money from the joint account and he buys food, or the esrog, will the other brothers be bothered? Will they tell, oh, you took $10, now I'm taking $10. If they're not that way, everyone takes what they need. They're not makpid. That means whatever you took is taka yours. Then it's going to be good. But if it's a type of family that anyone that takes anything mitfusas habayis they're makpid, then lo yotza. However, what happens if together they take money out of the account? One person bought an esrog and the other person bought a parish, quince, something else. At the same time they bought an esrog and a rimen or a parish. Even if they're not makbid. In other words, when money was taken and one guy bought this, one guy bought that, even though they're not makbid, since it's two different things, it's as if they made some sort of exchange over here.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. Unless they clearly say, I'm giving it to you. Halacha Yud Beis, new topic. Nevertheless, and that is what the pasuk is referring to again in Parshas Emoid. No, this extra simcha is lifnei Hashem alekechem, meaning in the holy Beis Hamikdash. Prior to Yom Tov, they already prepared an extra space area. And they did that mil mailam, and they kept the men mil mata. Why is that? They will begin not on Yom Tov proper, but Matzah Yom Tov. From when did it begin? From after they would bring Tam and Shalmein Arbayim. No, the thumb was a Kohen Gadol bowing down, and then Levi did it, and he got hurt. Could be okay. Okay, weiter. So they would begin after the Tamid for the rest of the day and the whole night. What would they do? And that's not only that. And on top of that, they danced. And they would clap their hands. They would bang. And says that Rambam because since they were playing musical instruments, for example, and we can't do that on Shabbos and on Yom Tov, midrabanan. Why? Because if it break, it might be masakin. That's the whole sugya. I ain't shvuz b'mikdash. They didn't always say ain't shvuz b'mikdash. We don't always say ain't shvuz b'mikdash. So since it was done then with instruments, they wouldn't do it on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. Halacha Yudal. U'mitzvah laharbois b'simchazu. Another din. V'lo yehoya oisem am ha'aretz v'chomish yirtzeh. El gedoyle chachma Yisrael. V'roshei ha'yeshiv v'hasan hedrim. V'hachasidim. V'hazakenim v'anshei ma'isa. Which is all the Yidden. Heim shehoyu merakdim. They would be the ones dancing, u'mesapkin and clapping their hands, u'menagdim and singing. U'smechem b'mikdash b'mei chag ha'sukkos. Avol kol ha'am v'anoshim v'anoshim. Kulam boyim lirois v'lishmaya. They came to watch. Final halacha tezvav. Sha'asimcha. Yidden. She'yismach odom ba'asiyas hamitzvahs. And it's a simcha that's coming out of the love of God that commanded us to keep the mitzvahs. Avoid the gedoylehi. Chol hamonea atzmai misimcha zu. Roili para mimenu. Shenemar, kachas asher lo yavarato as Hashem alekecha v'simcha v'tuv lev. Now, the chalameg is that the person holds himself proud. The chayla kavod la'atzmai, and he's giving himself kavod. Umeschabed be'einav, and he acts reportedly in these mitzvahs. I'm not going to sing and dance with all my koyach. It's not the machavadik. Choyte v'shoyte. V'alzeh yizer shleim of Amar al tishader lifnei hamelech. Don't seek your own glory in front of the king. And in the good and the positive, chol hamashpel atzmo. Person lowers themselves. Umekel gufay v'mekoyim aselu. Hu hagadol hamechubed ha'eved mi'ahav. V'chein David Melech Yisrael loimer. Even though it wasn't by sukkahs. But when we were bringing the Aron HaKodesh back, and he was criticized by one of his wives, and his response was, I will hold myself even more lightly esteemed. I'll be more humble in my eyes. And that's what he did. David was mefazes umecharker. He was dancing wildly, and he was whistling Lifnei Hashem. And on that we say, Brich, Rachmana Tzayon, God willing to be continued tomorrow. So we were